One of the most recommended mod to do on the Mazda 3 or Mazdaspeed 3 platform is to install an aftermarket rear motor mount. The reason for that is that over time, the factory rubber mounts, like any other rubber bushing, fails and allows for more movement than intended. But also for the acronym NVH, which stands for noise, vibration, and harshness. This is important because even if you were to replace your worn out engine mount with a factory one, you wouldn't get the full benefit of getting an aftermarket one. When manufacturers build cars, they want them to be as quiet, as comfortable, and as smooth as possible to be able to attract as many different people to the brand, keeping the NVH as low as possible. By upgrading the rear motor mount to an aftermarket one, we should see a big increase in NVH within the car. But we should see a lot of more responsiveness, a lot more feedback from the car, and technically, we should see a little bit more power to the ground. All right, so finally installing a rear motor mount. So this seems like a pretty straightforward install. There's technically just 2 bolts involved, and basically it's just to get access to it. The nice thing about this is that if you have access to some ramps, you don't even need to jack up the car technically. You can just drive up on top of ramps, unloose the motor mount, and install the new one. For most people doing this, probably their car is lowered. So like mine, I do have to jack it up and I'll have to go on smaller ramps and then jack up the car from there. But I think this should be a pretty straightforward mod. And on top of that, it seems like it changes the driving characteristic quite a bit in the car. So I'm looking forward to that. All right, so I got the OEM motor mount taken out of the car and I can compare both side by side. Obviously, there's a huge difference just looking at them. You can see that the one with polyurethane is a lot fuller. Plus, there's just small little holes to help with the vibration. While the OEM one, like you can see the big holes in the mount itself. Plus, I can flex it with my fingers like so easily. So obviously all that flex, the engine has to flex before the power is put to the ground. So there is some inserts that they sell for these. The cost of this is probably the cheapest polyurethane motor mount that you can get on Amazon. So realistically, if you buy some inserts, you're probably pretty close to just buying the full mount. So but even weight wise, I'm actually surprised because since this seems to be like machined aluminum, the weight of this is lighter than this mount itself. So all that's left is to reinstall it on the car and see how it feels. All right, so the motor mount is all installed. Now it's time for first startup and see how it feels. Oh, wow. Yeah, you definitely feel a lot more vibration. You kind of feel the engine like rumbling beneath and in the car almost. Supposedly it does tone down a little bit after a week or so of kind of breaking in the mount. The first startup, like at higher RPM, 1100, you felt it a lot, but now that the RPM has dropped to like about 800 or so, you can barely tell. Like there's a bit of vibration, but so if I give it a bit of gas, some more vibration in the car. So how does it feel? Well, to be honest, my first impression when I first drove the car, I wasn't even sure if I wanted to keep this mod on the car. I thought that the vibration was way too much, and even that the exhaust drone driving down the street was so loud that I just wanted to take the engine mount right off. But some people did mention that there was a break-in period and you had to drive the car with the rear motor mount for a few weeks to really get it broken in, to finally have it settled in, which would lower the NVH and the drone. So that's what I did. I kept it on for a few weeks, and after a few weeks, the vibration and the overall NVH did go down significantly enough that it's a more reasonable drive. Same thing with the drone. The drone is not there really anymore, and it's more of an enjoyable drive. So apart from the drawbacks of doing this mod, what are the good things that came out of it? Well, for one, the overall response of the car has been heightened. It's a lot more responsive, either with the throttle, the clutch. You feel that you're more connected to the car. Even with the shifter, shifting gears, it's a lot more engaging and you feel a lot more connected to the car and the transmission. Another thing that I did find pretty interesting is that the car does feel a lot crisper, and that it does feel like it's putting its power better to the ground. For example, before, when I used to accelerate really hard in first gear and then shift into second, I kind of felt like the engine or all the mounts would absorb the gear change, and the tires wouldn't really chirp, or like the tires wouldn't really squeal going into second gear. Now with the rear motor mount, I do have to most of the time take off traction control, or else traction control is going to kick in and cut the power right down if I don't take it off when I do accelerate hard from first to second. So that's another pretty interesting thing. I do feel like the power is getting to the ground a lot better, and it's definitely a more dynamic drive for sure. So was it worth it in the end? Well, I would say that it was. I think it's a great supporting mod for whatever mod you have on your car already, and it makes the overall feel of the car way sharper. Along the lines of making your car sharper and more responsive, a great mod to do so is by upgrading the rear sway bar. And you can go check out this episode right here where I installed just that. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.